Moving through the dry scrub at the basin's edge is an animal that would look, to modern eyes, unmistakably like a predator. Herrerasaurus. One of the earliest known carnivorous dinosaurs, it walks upright on powerful hind legs, its body lean and balanced, its jaws lined with curved, serrated teeth. It is perhaps 4 meters long, not a small animal by any measure. And right now, it is hunting. A group of dicynodonts has settled in a patch of shade not far ahead. These are heavy, barrel-bodied plant eaters, slow and unhurried, cropping at low vegetation. Herrerasaurus reads the wind, reads the distance, and holds its position. It is a capable hunter. Patient. Focused. But something is about to change the calculation entirely. The ground shudders. From the shadows at the tree line, something enormous moves into the open. Saurosuchus. A body built like a battering ram, more than 6 meters long, with a skull so massive it dwarfs anything else in this landscape. A single explosive lunge, and one of the dicynodonts is gone. Saurosuchus holds its prey with the calm of an animal that has nothing to fear. Herrerasaurus does not engage. It withdraws, quietly, into the scrub. We should be clear, this scene is a scientifically plausible reconstruction, not a documented event. No fossil record directly captures an encounter between these two animals. But both Herrerasaurus and Saurosuchus lived in the same formation, at the same time, in the same ecosystem. The ecological hierarchy between them is not speculation, it follows logically from everything we know about their size, their anatomy, and their world. And that hierarchy tells us something important about the early history of the dinosaurs. They did not begin as rulers. They began at the margins. The Triassic Earth belonged to something else entirely. Saurosuchus galilei is one of the best-known members of a remarkable group called the rauisuchians, large archosaurian predators that dominated terrestrial ecosystems for tens of millions of years before dinosaurs rose to prominence. Rauisuchians were not simply oversized crocodilians. They were a distinct lineage that evolved their own solutions to the problem of being a large land predator. One of the most significant was their posture. Unlike the sprawling stance of modern crocodilians, rauisuchians developed fully erect limbs, legs that sat directly beneath the body, rather than angling out to the sides. This gave them greater efficiency, greater stability, and considerably more speed than their body size might suggest. Saurosuchus also carried rows of osteoderms along its back, bony armor embedded in the skin, adding protection to an animal that already had very few natural threats. In the Ischigualasto ecosystem, it was the apex predator without serious rival. But Saurosuchus was not the largest of its kind. That distinction belongs to an animal we know only from fragmentary material, which makes it, in some ways, even more striking. Fasolasuchus tenax, also from the Late Triassic of Argentina, is the largest known rauisuchian based on current evidence. Estimates of its body length range from roughly 8 to 10 meters, and while body mass estimates for animals known from incomplete fossils always carry significant uncertainty, the figures suggested place it among the heaviest terrestrial predators of the entire Triassic period. By any reasonable estimate, Fasolasuchus was comparable in scale to the largest early theropod dinosaurs, and it walked this earth long before those animals reached their full potential. What did Fasolasuchus hunt? Here, the fossil record does not give us a direct answer. No preserved kill site, no bones bearing its tooth marks have been confirmed. What we can do is look at the fauna it shared its world with and reason from there. Large herbivorous synapsids, including dicynodontid lineages, were still present in the late Triassic. Early sauropodomorph dinosaurs, animals like Rauisuchians, a robust, long-necked plant eater that could reach 10 meters in length, lived alongside rauisuchians in the same formations. For a predator of Fasolasuchus's scale, these would have been plausible prey. Not confirmed, but ecologically consistent with what we know. What the rauisuchians represent, taken together, is not a primitive or transitional stage on the way to something better. They were a fully realized, highly successful predator design, one that held the top of terrestrial food chains for over 40 million years. That is a tenure that very few groups in the history of life on land have matched. And yet, by the end of the Triassic, something was changing. In late Triassic deposits from what is now Germany and France, the fossil record shows a theropod dinosaur that signals where the dinosaurian lineage was heading. Liliensternus liliensterni was not a small animal. With an estimated length approaching 5.5 meters, it was among the largest theropods of its time, long-legged, lightly built, with a skull adapted for powerful biting. It was fast. It was efficient. And it represented a new kind of predator beginning to test the upper limits of its own potential. This is not a story of competition decided by tooth and claw. Liliensternus did not drive the rauisuchians out. The fossil record does not support that narrative, and the two groups coexisted for a time without any simple replacement. What the record does suggest is that theropods like Liliensternus were becoming increasingly capable, a new predator design growing larger and more specialized in ecosystems that rauisuchians had long called their own. The rauisuchians represented the pinnacle of one archosaurian strategy. Theropods like Liliensternus were the opening chapter of another. What ended the rauisuchians was not a competitor. It was a catastrophe. Approximately 201 million years ago, the Triassic world came apart. Massive volcanic eruptions along the rifting margins of the Pangaea supercontinent poured enormous volumes of carbon dioxide and sulfur dioxide into the atmosphere. Global temperatures surged. Ecosystems that had persisted for tens of millions of years collapsed. The End-Triassic Mass Extinction is one of the 5 largest extinction events in Earth's history, and it fell heavily on the rauisuchians. Most of their lineages disappeared entirely, taking with them an evolutionary legacy that had lasted since the Middle Triassic. What survived, and what flourished in the ecological space that opened up, were the dinosaurs. Over the following millions of years, they expanded into roles that had been held by other animals for generations, and they would hold those roles for the next 135 million years. But the dinosaurs did not inherit a world emptied of serious competition. They did not rise because their predecessors were weak or poorly adapted. They rose because an extinction event removed some of the most formidable land predators this planet has ever produced.